I want to introduce to our viewers dear friend Alex Goldshteyn, who's actually the head of Rage San Francisco initiative. We're gonna miss you, Alex, for sure, and we need more people. Those of friends from San Francisco Bay Area that are watching. Remember, we need not somebody like you because it's impossible, but someone who can help us to awaken Russian Jewry of San Francisco Bay Area, California, in very few days, like in a week. You and
Less
your
than
family.
Wednesday. Yeah.
Next Wednesday.
Mhm.
Next Wednesday, actually exactly in 7 days, you're going to be taking a flight from San Francisco, which is one of the most amazing places in the world, and many people would love to move to San Francisco. When I was in San Francisco and spoke to your friends, some of them said, yeah, San Francisco is booming. That's where the money is. How come you want to immigrate from San Francisco to Israel?
The short of it is, I think long term for a Jewish family, there's no place like Israel. I've talked to a lot of my friends who have both in the States and in Israel, and you're thinking about long term Jewish values, a Jewish environment, access to Jewish education without it costing a fortune, community with, let's say, frum or even traditional friends who are more your age, options of different communities, not just having to be stuck to, I want to move to this town, I can move to this one spot with this eruv, with this school. You're very bound geographically, which it's not necessarily a bad thing, but in Israel you can explore. You've got a wide variety of things you can do. Ultimately, that is where I feel like the Jewish people's future is. We explored other communities and they were very nice, but when we in our gut we said, where do we want to settle our roots? Is it going to be in Los Angeles, San Diego, Portland, Vegas, any other growing community? And then we thought, I think if we're going to try something, I think we owe it to ourselves to try Israel.
I am so proud of you. Where in Israel?
We are going to Tel Mond, which is roughly 30 minutes north of Tel Aviv. It's right next to Ra'anana and Netanya. It's a small town, has an Anglo community, a shul, and there's a school associated with that community. That's his school. Very welcoming for Olim. It's called a soft landing spot. It's a really great place from what we've heard. We're looking forward to going. We actually have some friends who have moved there already, so we're looking forward to meeting them. They all moved there this summer.
What about your professional life?
So Baruch Hashem, I was able to secure a contract with a local firm here in the Bay Area. So I'm going to be working at least part-time for this local firm here while I'm over there. My wife is still trying to iron out the details with her job and see if she can take that with her. Obviously, professionally, it's a challenge in Israel as far as income earned. Maybe bottom line, it might not be a big deal if you're considering how much less you're paying for education, but it was definitely a concern of ours. I think we can make it work, and there is a lot of opportunity there as well.
Where did it begin, connecting to Israel, connecting to the Jewish future?
My wife and I both grew up here in San Francisco going to a Jewish school called the Hebrew Academy, and we always had a strong pro-Israel presence there, especially as we grew up. There were these shlachim that came from Bnei Akiva and Shirut Leumi and other types of organizations, and they would come and would get very close with a lot of people. And they were probably the main inspiration for, the attachment to Israel. Over the years, we have, 20, 30 shlichim that we still keep in touch with to this day, 15 years later. And they are definitely a source of us wanting to make Aliyah. And in general, Israel, there's so much great things about it. People always like to knock there's all this bureaucracy. Well, there's bureaucracy here as well, but you don't have the spirituality and just the Judaism is penetrating everywhere. It's in the air there.
If San Francisco can produce you and your wife, and you came from the city of Kiev, like my grandparents.
I came from Khmelnytsky, actually, sir.
You actually came from Khmelnytsky. Wow.
Yeah.
The name of Khmelnytsky is Adolf Hitler of the Middle Ages, or whatever it is.
Right.
Responsible for murder of 300,000 Jews. And your wife?
Her dad is from Khmelnytsky as well. Her mom is from Russia and Bryansk, I think.
Wow. You both, in a way, have roots from Khmelnytsky, but you met in San Francisco.
Yes.
That's mind-boggling, and you end up in one Jewish high school in the city. That's unbelievable.
Yeah,
So
so
you
we went to that school. That school was mostly Russian kids. I'd say 95% Russian kids.
right?
So we all had a good time there growing up. Not a huge religious population among the student body, but some people chose to explore further, do more. A lot of people just kept it up. Some people, decided that going to the school was enough for them.
We have a special group called Russian American Aliyah. You know about this group? It's a Facebook group,
Mm-hmm.
WhatsApp group. I believe over 100 families. I think two of them already made Aliyah. I believe you're going to be the third one among this group of over 100 families that considering Aliyah. I understand there were bureaucratic problems. You needed to prove your Jewishness and many other things. You were able to overcome all that successfully. What you would want to tell all these people that's still thinking to make the step or not?
The number one recommendation I would say is to get moving sooner rather than later. For us, I think a lot of the holdup was that we were so overwhelmed by this questionnaire and these documents that we kind of just sat on it for, I'd say, almost a year, if I'm honest with it. We got it and we just waited and waited and waited, and then we're like, oh, this is overwhelming. But well, had we started 8 months earlier, it would have been less overwhelming. And then I know people who, the problem was, I think that with these documents they request, it's not a standard thing. They're always asking a different request from each individual. And you just need to give yourself time to do it. And be creative. My wife found a picture of her grandmother at her great-grandmother's grave. And you could see in the background, there's another grave with some Hebrew writing on it. That's something, it's not an official document, but it helps. You add it to the file.
We also have people of Russian background and that. They probably watching you with surprise and like wondering, like, what's going on? You're living a safety, security, whatever it is of this country, going to Middle Eastern country surrounded by enemies. What you would like to tell them?
There is a surprise, but there's also a lot of people who surprisingly are telling me, I think you're making the right move. Obviously, like, our parents hate to see us go, and there was definitely a bit of conflict in the beginning, but they also see that, at least I'm speaking to my parents, they don't think this is the same America they came to 30 years ago. They're seeing differences. And this is, forget politics. This is regardless of who wins, what have you. America's slightly shifting, and Israel shifts as well. A lot of people, like my dad had a friend who used to live in Israel, moved here, and he told my dad, he's like, oh, they'll probably have a better life there, even though he ended up moving here. And my dad seemed to calm down after that, for example. There's a lot of people who are in their 40s and 50s that I've ran into here in the local community, not even religious. And they keep asking about the Aliyah process. And they're like, oh yeah, we started looking into it as well. I would have never guessed some of them. And it's surprising, but it's also not. So there's definitely some sort of, there's something in the air that's moving people in that direction.
Many of our friends in San Francisco, they sometimes come to some of the Jewish events, and you miraculously created these events, and I really have tremendous gratitude to you for that. What can you tell them, those people who stay and we're really not sure about their Jewish future?
Yeah, this issue is huge. Even somebody like me who, Baruch Hashem, we have a Shabbat observant home, things like that. Even people like that, I talked to people on the East Coast who are saying they're moving to Israel, even though they're from, their family's from, they don't know if their kids are going to be from, they said. They don't know if their kids are going to be Jewish. Actually, it was what one of my friends told me. Other people who are having similar concerns. This is not San Francisco, where it's not the East Coast. It's a big challenge for everybody. In order to stay Jewishly relevant, you have to be involved. You have to do something. You can't just passively let it happen. If you passively let it happen, as you can see, and again, God bless America, it's the greatest country, but America has seen the Jews got a little too happy, too comfortable, and they kind of just faded away into the culture. Which, every year in the Haggadah, we read it, and you see that the Jews who decided to stay back, they didn't want to leave. They were complacent there. Even though they were slaves, they were comfortable. They knew what life was, and they they either 80% died in the plague of darkness, or I always kind of just see it when I'm reading the Haggadah. They faded away into the darkness of Egypt. They just faded into the culture, and they were never to be heard from again. And the Jews here are no different. We're not special. Every generation faces this challenge, and if we don't learn from the previous generations, it's going to happen again. So
It's
God
so-
willing, if you stay involved, if you stay educated, you learn a little bit, learn the history, learn Torah, you have a chance. If you don't, then you don't even know that you don't have a chance.
What a powerful message. I want to offer my blessings to you. First of all, that your aliyah should be aliyah in every meaning of the word. You should be successful in, first of all, finding a job, finding a place, finding a community. Your children should find great schools. You should be successful there. But aliyah also means a spiritual elevation, because aliyah doesn't mean just moving. It really should be a source of inspiration for you and your family. You should be proud and happy about this move. At the same time, I also want to give another blessing to you and San Francisco and Bay Area community, because I know how much you invested over the years, not just through Rage and through your Beit Midrash program, and through your shul and your friends, and how many wonderful, wonderful, amazing people with the spirit of innovation stay in San Francisco. San Francisco is a place where there's something in the air. And speaking to them, if you remember, last night when we met, I said that I feel that from the spirit of innovation of San Francisco, this Jewish rebirth in a way, and inspiration will come to other places of the United States. Our interview should be this blessing. People who see you both in San Francisco and in other places should hear your words of get involved, correct? Get involved.
Absolutely.
In educating yourself, in contributing to your community, in standing up for Israel, in learning yourself, teaching others, teaching your children. And I think that this interview should be a continuation of your educational efforts, which is also Rage San Francisco initiative. And because we live in a different world, we still can do it by Zoom. Am I right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'll be waiting for you in Israel. And if not, then we can do Zoom.
Exactly.
Not a problem.
So first of all, we said Mazal Tov to you on your amazing, courageous decision that should be a blessing to you and your family and everybody around you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.